Welcome to the Positive Regression Podcast, real conversations to help you think for yourself, grow through what you're going through, and build a life that's true to you. Each week, I speak with coaches, therapists, financial experts, and thought leaders, sharing the best insights on how to live a free, empowered, and abundant life. This is your space to grow stronger, align your life, and create with purpose. Let's get started.
Just like putting a character on it.
Yeah, well, this is something that I've got to really get better at. Is just like
Click it in.
no, it's just being myself when I'm recording, because I have that tendency of like, okay, and now it's presenter time. And it's no good. Hello, Sarn. Welcome to the Positive Regression Podcast. Thanks for coming on. So I usually start out the podcast every time with getting a little bit of backstory into who I'm speaking with, so the listeners and the viewers have an idea of who you are, why we're talking, and just get a better idea of what the conversation is going to entail. So if you could perhaps just introduce yourself, let everybody know what it is that you do, and we'll get stuck into how you came to be in Da Nang, being interviewed by me for the Positive Regression Podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. At the moment, I'm a crypto consultant, so for cryptocurrency, and I basically help individuals, businesses, all the way up to law firms in terms of court cases with anything to do with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And so I got into cryptocurrency back in 2017. I was 18, 19 at the time. And at the time, it was just something I came across, wanted to learn a bit more, obviously put some money in and played the game of investing, didn't do too well. My emotions got the best of me, but over the years, I've stayed active in the industry to the point where I've worked with companies, and now I'm out on my own as a crypto consultant. So it's about 7 to 8 years of experience within the industry itself.
And when you say like work with companies and in the industry, what were you doing for those companies, and what is the industry in general? Because maybe some people out there have a pretty good understanding of how the crypto universe works, but for laymen like myself, what does that actually look like to work with companies in the crypto industry?
Yeah, so I mean, cryptocurrency is a form of currency, and there's many different types. And within the industry itself, there's been different types of services that then link to those currencies. So a lot of people, they need to go through some kind of company or a service to buy crypto. So from their bank account, from dollars to crypto world, also when they want to sell. So there's a service there that a business can operate. And then you've got exchanges where they allow you to trade different cryptocurrencies. And to this day, you've now got Visa cards, so you can spend your cryptocurrency. That's another company offering that service. It's almost like a new financial system in a way that's separate from the current world. And there's a lot of small companies starting to innovate and create the same services that we have in traditional finance, like loans and earning interest on your money type of thing. So for myself, I worked for a New Zealand company that made it very easy for people to buy and sell cryptocurrency in New Zealand. And it was a startup, and I think I was about the 20th employee. So wore a bunch of different hats. A lot of it was customer service and success, making sure that the customers were going through the right flow, and also fixing mistakes that people had made. But then also identifying things that the company could do better, because I myself am a crypto person. I use their service, and so it was quite easy to identify things. One other thing too with the whole crypto industry, because it is very new and it's rapidly evolving, it's moving so fast, companies always need to be updating their systems, changing the way that they might offer a service or how it works, because the industry is just rapidly evolving right at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you've been doing for the past few years, but you're no longer in New Zealand. We're here in Da Nang, Vietnam. So what has been the transition for you, and why have you made that transition to being here?
I've always wanted to, my main goal over the last few years has been to get to a point where I'm self-employed, and a few different things in crypto have helped me get to that stage, including having my money in Bitcoin. But moving into the realm of being a cryptocurrency consultant gave me the ability to work completely remotely. I was operating completely remotely even when I was employed within crypto companies. Most crypto companies are fully remote. So if you are looking for a career change and you want fully remote, it's a good industry. But yeah, I've got to the stage where I am making my own income. It's completely remote. And I've always wanted to do the digital nomad thing where you can travel and still earn your income. Yeah, and so Vietnam, I mean, cost of living, we both know it's great.
Yeah.
It's very safe here. But that's the transition happened a while back in terms of me being ready to move, but it's only just in the last 6 months that I've finally made the move to become a nomad.
And what I'm curious, because a lot of people out there are perhaps also sitting on the fence about going self-employed or moving and becoming a digital nomad. What was the kind of deciding factor for you that pushed you over the edge?
I think it was not enjoying my time in New Zealand. I mean, we're both Kiwis here. If you're not someone from New Zealand, you might not understand, but if you're from a small country, you will. Being in such a small country, the world is so big. And if you're so far from the rest of the world, there is that strong desire to leave. And so the time just came where it was the right time to move, and so I made it happen.
Nice. And we were speaking before we started filming, but you were telling me a bit about your financial situation and how crypto really helped you. Do you want to just perhaps, because I think it's really empowering to hear of people, especially young people, getting themselves out of deep financial problems, and especially with help from this new money. So are you able to just share a few more details about what your situation was and what it's like now and how that kind of transition maybe happened?
Yeah, when I was fresh out of school, it's around the same time I actually found Bitcoin. Shortly after that, I started getting into debt. I basically went out and got a credit card, and the bank decided to give me a very high value credit card, one that usually goes to older people with big jobs type of thing. And sure enough, being young and dumb, I racked up the full limit on the credit card, and somehow I was able to buy a jet ski on finance as well.
Wow.
I mean, this is like, stupidity completely. And so anyway, I got to the point where I was about 21, and I had about $22,000 in debt across credit card, loans, and jet ski finance.
Wow.
And yeah, all my paycheck, everything that I was working for was just trying to bring the debt down. And it was really difficult. Every month the interest was getting thrown on. Maybe my car would have an issue, and all of a sudden I needed an extra $2,000, so back on the credit card. So for a long time I was really struggling, and I think a lot of young people go through that. I think banks can be a little bit predatory to young people. They don't, it's probably good not to get a credit card if you're under 25, or if you do, get a very low limit. But anyway, and the whole time I had been watching Bitcoin because I'd already invested in it and I understood how it worked, but I didn't have any money to invest. So it was very, very painful watching it move up and down, up and down. And I did have to sell all of my Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to throw at my debt.
Right.
Now, after about 2 or 3 years of throwing all of my leftover money towards my debt, I was able to clear it. And I did clear it with the help of selling a Facebook page that I'd built. When I was young, I built popular meme pages basically on Facebook. Sold that, and then I had about 10 grand left over after the sale and paying off all my debt. And after watching Bitcoin for a couple of years, it was just the right time. I could see that the market was moving. It was ticking all the boxes from my experience. So I literally paid off my debt, canceled the credit card once I paid it, closed all the loans, and within 24 hours, I had put that 10 grand straight into Bitcoin.
Wow.
So I'd been broke for about 2-3 years straight. The first time I had any money, like anything over $1,000 to my name available, it all just went straight into Bitcoin. And might seem crazy, especially after that time period, but I had the confidence, and I knew that it was a bet worth taking. And just to sum it all up, right? So I knew it was a good time to buy in, so I did so. And within 18 months, I had gone from being in debt to having nothing, to then having 10 grand, to having over 120 grand.
Wow.
And most of that is off the investment in Bitcoin. Of course, it's gone down since, and then it's gone back up again over the years. But, had I just put that money in savings and kept saving, I think I'd have about 13 or 14 grand today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. It's, I'm sure a lot of people out there like myself are kicking themselves for not of having invested earlier on. So now you're in this position where you're working for yourself, you're self-employed, and you are now helping others to invest in Bitcoin, invest in other cryptos, or where is your sort of expertise and area of focus?
It's across the board with crypto clients, so people that reach out to me for help. I pretty much help them with what they want. So my job is to make sure that the client walks away from working with me and they've got what they want, rather than me try push my own agenda or thoughts. It's only if they then ask me, what do you think about this? Then I might give my thoughts, but I can't give straight financial advice. So I basically help people across the board with all sorts of crypto investing and them managing their crypto. I myself, though, in terms of helping people out of my own free will and desire to, without clients coming to me, I am progressively pushing for people to at least learn or understand a little bit about Bitcoin and then make the decision whether or not they want to use it or not.
Yep.
At least if you've understood it slightly and you know a little bit about it, then you can make the decision of, is this something that I'm interested in, yes or no?
Yeah, that's a really important point, because once you know what the opportunity is or the potential opportunity is, then you're informed enough to make a decision on whether that's an opportunity for you. But most people, for example, don't know what the opportunity is and therefore are missing it the whole time. So maybe this is a great point a time to delve into what is the opportunity when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto. First of all, what is Bitcoin? For those who don't know, everybody has heard it. Simply put, as simple as you can, what is it and why should we pay attention to it?
It's just a digital currency, like in bare format, it's just a digital currency.
And what does digital currency mean?
A currency that's completely digital, but
let's clear things up.
yeah, there's no physical format, no coins or notes, but really the true value to Bitcoin and why it's priced at, as of recording this, $80,000 why people value it at that is because it's a currency that anyone can have and use, and it's outside banking and outside the control of governments. And if you look into history, we've always had problems with money because governments are the ones who control money. And quite often that can end up in problems. And even today with inflation, everyone can feel the problems of how money works. So it's basically a currency outside of current currency that people use. But probably one of the most defining factors about Bitcoin is that it's completely scarce. So it's a piece of software code and it just runs on that code. That's it.
You can't add to that code.
You can suggest how to add to it, but everyone has to come together and agree to that for it to happen. So it's very rare, but there's no single person, company, bank, or government, not even the FBI, that can come in and change Bitcoin or how many Bitcoins exist. So I guess in a world of uncertainty in the whole financial system where we don't know, how many dollars there are, they don't know how much gold there is, all these things, Bitcoin is almost a certainty in a way because we know exactly how it works and what it will do because it's called that code. Yes. Yeah.
Predictable, that doesn't mean we can predict what the price is going to do in the short term, but we can more or less sort of get an idea of what's going to happen long term, or?
Yeah, like by predictable, we know exactly how many Bitcoin exist today, how many will exist in 10 years time, in 50 years time, and how many can ever exist. Right? It's completely capped. So there's only so many Bitcoin that can ever exist. And for a lot of people that learn about Bitcoin, that's probably the most defining factor is, okay, so if there's only 21 million Bitcoins, which is the limit, if I own 10 of those, that's quite big in terms of the world of 8 billion people. Whereas if you have $1,000 in your bank account and there's $10 trillion and the government can print another 10 trillion.
Yeah, I think that's a really, I'd love to get into more about what money actually is, because I think there's a deeper conversation to be had there around what is money, and therefore if we understand what money is, then we can understand what the problems are with the current financial system. We can see perhaps some of the upsides and downsides of something like Bitcoin. But in your words, what is money?
Money to me is, it's a concept, right? Money can be anything. I could trade with you some bread and you give me some meat, and that's a way of trading something that we could call money between each other. But money today that everyone agrees to use is dollars, and that's created by government, managed by government, and they control how many dollars there are and how many dollars they can create. So just to put it simply, the way I see money, it is a concept, but we trade our energy and our value for money. We work every day, and in return we get money. And in terms what kind of money that is, we get dollars, currency. So today I might do 8 hours of work and I might get $100. That form of money that we get, $100 in my example, is government money and it slowly loses its value. Recently, it's been losing its value faster, which is inflation.
Yeah.
That's why everyone feels like they can afford less and the price of houses are going up. And it's because the value of the money that you have or you're holding is going down. So by concept of money, that's one form of money. Other forms of money is gold. For a long, long time over human history, gold has been seen as money because it's very scarce. It's very hard to find. You have to mine it, melt it down.
Right.
So therefore, gold is something that is hard to get, and so we see value in it. And like I said, back in the day, things like bread and food, we would trade materials. And so this is where Bitcoin comes in too, and it's another form of money because it's gotten valued because people can use it all over the world. It's completely digital, and it's very hard to get. Like I said, it's very scarce. So it's very similar to gold in a way. So if you're working every day and you're getting given money that's not very good, it's going to lose its value over time. You have to trust the government. Maybe you give it to the bank in a savings account and you trust that the bank will let you have it when you ask for it. Instead of having your money in dollars, most people will shift their money into different forms of money, like housing, real estate, gold, maybe stocks. And then for a younger generation or a new form of money, we've got Bitcoin now.
I think that's also like, with real estate, that's the reason that real estate is valuable and why real estate goes up is because in most countries around the world, certainly in the Western world, population is going up, but we're not building. So the supply of housing is decreasing. Then of course you've got a lot more money being thrown into the market. So people have more money to throw at things that they want. And so the reason that real estate is valuable in the way that it is because it's also limited. It's also, there's a limited supply of real estate. So if I was just to summarize what you're saying, money is, it's like the store energy, a store of energy, right?
Yeah, or value, yeah.
So instead of having to directly trade with somebody, I give you something you want, you give me something I want. Instead of that transaction happening, we can all agree on using this money because it just means we can take our energy, we can put our energy in there, and then we can transfer it
whatever I want. Yeah.
So what do you see as the biggest problem with the financial situation at the moment?
A really good question, actually. So, I mean, the way that our money works today, so dollars, it's called fiat currency. That's the official word to use, but it's infinite. There's never a certain amount of dollars that can ever exist. There can always be new money created and printed. Back in the day, they would have to create new coins and new notes. Today, it's a couple of buttons on a screen. Poof, there's $1 trillion added to the system. So that's why we have inflation, is because the money that we have and we use has no limit on how much of it can exist. Like you said, if there's more money in the system being thrown at the same things, the price of everything goes up. So that's the main problem I see today. Now, that's why most rich people are buying houses, like you said, gold, stocks, all these things. For a lot of young people, housing is becoming unaffordable. So I meet so many young people myself from New Zealand, and they're all saving to eventually be able to get a deposit on a house. So they are trying to buy the asset, which is the house, but they have to go through years of saving money.
Yeah, because their savings is going up like this, but the price of the house is going up like this. So they're constantly sort of chasing their tails, aren't they?
Yeah. You're chasing a goalpost that's consistently been moved back from you. And traditionally, a couple could buy a house within a couple of years of savings. So this wasn't such a big problem because people would know okay, let's use our money, let's save it, let's get a house. Whereas now it's getting more difficult to be able to do that. So the system is getting harder for younger people, poorer people, but then you also run into nomads that maybe don't want a house, because who wants to settle down at 25, 30 or whatever it may be, or if you want that freedom lifestyle. So you really only have a couple of options of where you could put your leftover money so that it doesn't lose its value because of inflation. You've got gold, that then you might be carrying around gold. You've got stocks, which is fine, but you then have to pick the right stocks to make sure that you do beat inflation. Or you've got Bitcoin as an alternative. And so that's where Bitcoin is going in terms of my personal finance. And that's where I see it moving for the rest of the world. But the biggest problem now, and it's always existed, but right now it's elevated because people are finding it harder to start out a young person and be able to put their money into something, which is usually a house. Most rich people, they don't have money in the bank. All their money's in real estate, gold, stocks, businesses,
companies,
anything to the bank, because they know for a fact if it sits in the bank, it's losing its value, it's not working. So the problem is the system is kind of broken by design, but there is a way out, and you just have to be able to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It is getting harder to do the right thing, but for me personally, and the way I see it is Bitcoin is giving people an option to be able to take part in that, regardless if they're very poor or very wealthy.
Yeah, right. So let's speak on that for a moment. So Bitcoin, you said Bitcoin is at 80,000 US dollars at the moment, roughly. Well, I don't have $80,000 to invest in Bitcoin. What do you say to that?
Well, it's completely divisible. So like I said, when I just said that sentence there, it's available for anyone that's poor or wealthy. You can go on and buy 0.0001 of a Bitcoin. Right. And I know it sounds like nothing, but if Bitcoin is a big circle, like a pie chart really, and like I said, there's only 21 million coins, even if you're getting a very small slither of that chart, you're still getting a slither of the total amount. It's not going to become less because there's only so many that can exist. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And one of the biggest things that new people bring up is, I can't afford a Bitcoin. You don't need to buy a Bitcoin. Most people, pretty much everyone, they will buy very small increments, and that slowly stacks up.
Right. And what about, because another big one is, especially with crypto, but also Bitcoin as the leading crypto, is it's too volatile. A lot of people put their money in houses, for example, because there's this, and gold especially, because there's this idea that those are stable assets. They're not going to go, to zero. Bitcoin goes up and down a lot. We've just seen recently it went up to 107,000 US dollars. Now it's down at 80,000. How can we kind of approach it in a way that feels like we're not going to lose all of our money?
Yeah, I mean, it is volatile, and it is more volatile than property, gold, stocks, like you said. The thing is with Bitcoin, because it is still a very fresh new asset, it's about 15 years old, it will take time and more money in the whole system, the Bitcoin system, for it to get to a point where that volatility isn't so extreme. Today, it might only take $5 billion of Bitcoin being sold for the price to drop another 10,000. Whereas to try to drop the price of housing by 20%, you need to sell a huge amount of houses. And if you think of houses in a way, if you want to sell your house, you have to get a real estate agent, you have to put it on the market, wait for an offer, and then get that offer to be approved, go through the bank. It's a whole process. If you want to sell your Bitcoin, you could send it to an exchanger and it'd be sold in 2 to 3 minutes. So yes, it is volatile, but it really depends on also your time frame. Like you said, it's dropped 27,000 in a couple of weeks. But also at the same time, this time last year, Bitcoin was at about 50,000, and today it's at 80.
Yeah.
And this time 2 years ago, it was about 25,000. Today it's 80. So if you zoom out, the trend line is literally like this. If you put a trend line on it, which just tracks the average of the entire movement, it goes like this. There's of course dips, but every time it seems to go higher than its previous all-time highs. And one last thing I will say is, it's easy to look at housing because housing goes up. It's easy to look at gold because it seemingly goes up as well, pretty stable. But especially as a young person, right? Do you really want to be buying gold and you're going to make 30% in the next 10 years? Is that really going to advance your life? Or would you be chasing maybe the potential asset that is going up 30% every 6 months on average? And one way to look at that, I'll keep this brief, but the average median cost of a house, the average house in America about 5 years ago was about 400,000 US. And that would cost you back then about 15 or 16 Bitcoin. Today, the median house and the average house in the US is about 550,000 as an example. So it's gone up. It's gone up 150,000. It's a really decent amount. But what is $150,000 in Bitcoin today? It's about 6 or 7 Bitcoin, maybe 8. Once it's at 100,000, I mean, it's back to 5.5 Bitcoin. So the price of a house has gone up in dollars. But if you had all your money in Bitcoin, or you're putting your money in Bitcoin over those 5 years, the price of a house has dropped 2/3.
Yeah.
Technically, right, against Bitcoin. So it's just showing you've got an asset that's going up much faster than housing and gold itself. Gold's lost 90% of its value against Bitcoin over 5 years.
So it's looking at a different way of measuring
The value. Instead
Yeah.
of valuing a house, the average house, because you need to take an average, or an ounce of gold, for example, in dollars, they do go up because dollars are worthless. We all know that they're going down in value. But if you price it in Bitcoin, you start to see that the price of everything over the last 1 year, 5 years, 10 years is progressively getting cheaper. And that's only because Bitcoin is outperforming all of these assets.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. The reason that the value of a house is going up is because they're printing all of the money. So
Exactly.
yes, maybe it's doubled and it's gone from 400 to 800,000, but that doesn't mean you're twice as well off.
No,
Because the value of that
on paper the numbers
is
are
now
bigger, but if you sell your house, you can just go buy another quality of house. You can't actually upgrade with the money you've made because all the houses have gone up.
Yeah.
It all comes down to our monkey brains with finance hasn't advanced at all. Humans like scarcity. We like something that we can have that not a lot of people can have. So that's why people love houses, gold, and as more people learn Bitcoin, because it is the most scarce.
And I think, another really important thing, especially I think for young people, is to recognize that upside, the benefit that you're going to get comes from the risk that you take on. They're the same thing. If there's no risk in what you're investing in, there is no upside. The reason that gold, for example, is considered safe is because, well, there's not a whole lot happening, right?
Yeah.
If you look over the long term, it's like, well, how much has gold gone up? It's like, yeah, not that much. And so, especially for young people who have their whole lives to earn money and to recover from potential losses, it's also worthwhile considering that actually, if you're young, say if you're in your 20s, you should be looking at like how much risk, trying to take on as much risk as you can in a smart way so that you know what you're getting into and there is upside, but to understand that you can't be completely safe and get the upside that you claim to want. And I think that's so important to realize. It's like, if you're young, you have the time to recover from something if it goes wrong, or you have the time to wait for Bitcoin to go up over the years. Take on risk, because it's the risk that is going to see those outsized returns over time as well.
Yeah, especially if you're young, because if it does turn to shit, to put it briefly or straight, you have the time and the energy to bounce back. Maybe if you're 50 or 60 and you're getting close to retirement, it's probably not a good idea to be super risky with your money. And I think a lot of young people, they just take advice from the older people that have done well, or their parents, which isn't bad advice. But you have to remember too, the generation that they grew up in 40 years ago when they were our age is totally different than it is today.
Completely different financial situation.
Their advice isn't bad, but yeah, a lot of them were living in a completely different type of world than we are today. And things have changed, whether or not they realize that or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's just like that advice that your parents are giving might still be relevant advice for somebody of your parents' age.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Oh, you should be, being conservative with your money, or maybe you should be getting into property, although maybe we could say getting into property at any age is a good idea, but that advice is relevant to people of your parents' age, but it might not be relevant to you at 21 years old, just getting into the labor market. It's like, well, do you want to be investing in bonds that give you, 4% return a year when inflation is potentially 12, 17, 18%?
It's just, I want to add to that too. Let's just say you are saving up for a house and you're saving $20,000 a year, which is pretty good. And then the average house, or the houses that you're looking at buying eventually, they're going up 10% a year, right? Which is a huge amount. You're not getting any closer if you're not making at least 10 to 15% a year or more yourself. So for a lot of people, like I said, the money is in a savings account. They're saving for a house. Average savings account over the years is probably about 2.5%, 3% interest, especially after tax, because tax takes a portion.
Yeah.
So if you're earning 3% a year on all of your savings, and the house you're trying to get is going up 6 to 8% a year on average, once again, like, you're falling behind. Even though you are going up in dollars, just doing that simple calculation, it can be quite depressing to realize that you're losing. But that's the wake up that some people need, because they don't realize.
Yeah.
Maybe, when my parents were young, you could put money in a savings account and earn 7 or 8% a year. And that
inflation,
was
exactly. And then if inflation is 2% or 1.5%, like it might have been, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, probably more like 30 years, 40 years ago, then that was a decent return. But if your savings is 4% now, which I think a lot of savings accounts perhaps are, but inflation is double that at the very least, you're not saving anything. You're still losing 4% a year.
Yeah. And the problem is too, the way that the savings account with the bank works is interest rates will drop. So that means your savings interest rate that you get will decline very soon. It's going to happen because this is how finance works. I won't go into it to make it complicated, but it will happen, trust me. And when that drops, it makes it very cheap for people to borrow money because the interest rate that you're paid on your savings is very similar to the interest rate that people pay to borrow money. So rich people will borrow money to buy houses, Bitcoin, stocks, and they will all start to climb again. So while you're earning very low percentage on your savings account, everything that you're saving up for is going up very quickly.
Yeah.
It's the complete reverse of what you want and what you need. So yeah, if I had to say anything to people, especially young people, is rich people own assets, poor people don't. That's really it.
Yeah.
And it is hard to eventually get to that point where you have assets, but that is the only way to progress yourself.
This is one of those things where I see on the internet, and it drives me mental, where people are, for example, saying, "Oh, Elon Musk," especially Elon Musk these days, because there's a whole side of the political spectrum that hates his guts now.
Yeah.
But they say, "Oh, Elon Musk, he's got $400 billion or 300, whatever it is. Oh, he could just pay off world hunger." And it's like, that money isn't sitting in the bank. He doesn't have $300 billion sitting in the bank in cash. He has a company, or companies as it is, that are worth that amount. And the reason that he's worth that amount is because he takes on the risk and he puts all of his finances into those companies.
All of his energy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of his energy.
And it's just compounded over his whole life to get to a point where it's insanely wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like shifting that mindset of like, oh, I'm earning money to buy stuff that I can use. It's like, no, that's the wrong way to think about it. You need to be thinking about like you've got a job, you're earning money, and that money, the purpose of that money is in part to survive, the minimum to pay your living expenses, but then to buy assets, to buy Bitcoin, to buy businesses that go up, and to like have that as the priority rather than, oh, I'm earning money so that I can buy a nice jet ski, for example.
Yeah, or if your goal is to get a jet ski, okay, great. It's a very good goal to use it. It's a good goal to have an example. If I had done it right, I wouldn't have got a loan to buy the jet ski. Stupid me. I should have been buying assets like Bitcoin. And when it got to a point where it had grown very quickly and I can sell a very small portion to buy my jet ski, I'd go out and buy my jet ski. So technically, let's just say I ended up putting 10 grand in Bitcoin, and after a year it ends up being 40 grand. I can sell 10 grand of that and buy the jet ski.
And
so,
you still got
I still got 30 grand
of Bitcoin, yeah.
The jet ski almost feels like it was free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than taking out a loan and being in debt for the next 2.5 years trying to pay it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway. The whole reason that we work for money is that so that we can actually hold on to a portion of it so that our life in the future will be easier.
Yeah.
That's most people, right? Some people will spend every paycheck on everything just for fun, but most people want to save some of their money and have a more comfortable future. They want a nicer car. Maybe they want to raise a family. They want to look after their kids. But if you're saving that in dollars and those dollars are losing value over time, you're playing a losing game. So that's where the assets come in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you want to put your energy, which is your money, into stuff that holds its value or increases, one or the other.
Yeah. Holds the energy.
Exactly.
Or it expands the energy. Yeah.
So in 50 years' time, if you want to sell any of these things, you still get the same level of energy that you put in over all those years to have that.
So now I just remembered an interesting thing that you were telling me about, and that idea of selling Bitcoin, because people are thinking, well, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, but what happens when I need to sell it because I want the money, and what if it's gone down? What options are there out there so that people can think of Bitcoin as a long-term asset rather than something that I'm going to buy and then sell just to get my money out of? What are some options there?
Yeah, there's a few options, but probably the first one is maybe not be investing all of your money that you need to rely on, right? Even very successful investors I know, they still have an emergency bank account with just enough money to pay the bills for 2 or 3 months. So even if everything went to shit, they're good. But the cool thing with Bitcoin now is it's got to a point, and crypto in general, is that if you have Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, you can actually take out a loan against it. So let's just say I had $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. I need to sell $2,000 to pay off my mechanic bill to fix my car. I don't have any money in the bank. What I could do is either sell $2,000 of my Bitcoin, or I could put it into the system that's available. There's many systems, and then take out a very small loan and pay for the bill. And it might sound bad. A lot of people look at it as, wait, you're going back to debt. Why are you taking out debt? Debt's bad. Well, the idea is I've got 10 grand of Bitcoin. I'm borrowing $2,000. At any time, I can pay off that loan by selling 2,000 of the Bitcoin. But the idea is I'm just going to sit on that debt, even if it's got 5 or 10% interest. It's fine with me, because there's a higher chance the next year my Bitcoin will be worth $12,000 or $15,000, for example. And then I can sell 2,000 of that and pay off the loan and the interest. And I still got more money than I started with, but I was able to fix my car.
Right. So in that regard, you're never able to borrow more than the amount that you have in Bitcoin?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's having more in the Bitcoin is what actually gives you the ability to borrow, because who you're borrowing it from needs to make sure that even if you ran away with the money, you never paid it back, they can still pay it off with your Bitcoin.
So what happens if, let's say, you have $10,000 worth of Bitcoin and you go and borrow $2,000 worth of US dollars, and Bitcoin drops to your $10,000 worth of Bitcoin is now $1,000 worth. What happens in that situation?
Yeah, as your $10,000 of Bitcoin dropped in value, as it approached the $2,000 worth of Bitcoin, you're at the same amount as your loan, your Bitcoin's automatically taken and sold to pay off your loan.
Okay.
So you don't have the Bitcoin anymore, but you don't have the loan as well.
So you're never left in a position where you are
hugely in debt,
right?
And and all your Bitcoin's gone. It'll be Bitcoin's gone, but the loan's gone.
Okay. Yeah. So at the very least, you're left with nothing rather than negative.
Correct. And as it's Bitcoin hasn't dropped that quick enough for that to happen to people. It does drop incrementally, so usually you've got time to realize what's going on. If you have more Bitcoin, you can just put more on the loan to keep it going so that it doesn't get sold.
Right.
You can effectively do what rich people have done for centuries or decades with land and property. They borrow against property to buy cars, to buy more assets, to buy new houses. They just keep recirculating the money they have. You can do that with Bitcoin, but you don't have to be wealthy or rich.
That's such a complete mind shift to start thinking of it as something that you can hold on to permanently, in essence, and still have
a credit line ready to
credit line,
money ready to go.
Still be able to benefit from it. It's not just sitting there not doing anything. It's going up, but it's also acting as a little piggy bank, I suppose, for you to draw from. That's really good. And who loans you the money?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. It gets really technical here, but it's not difficult to use. It's just how it works is technical. It's once again a piece of code, software out on the internet. So it's not a bank. It's not a government. There's actually no one in charge of it. The way it works is it's a system where if you have US dollars, you can put it into the system and earn interest like a savings account. When I come along with my $10,000 of Bitcoin to take out a loan, I put my Bitcoin in the system and I take out the 2,000 US dollars in loan.
Right, that's somebody else's potential.
Someone else's money that's sitting there, yeah. And when I pay it back with the interest, it's going back into all of that money and they're getting interest all the time. They're earning on their US dollars. Like I said, or like we said, if Bitcoin drops really quickly or I just don't pay the loan at all when it does drop, that Bitcoin is sold and that person gets their $2,000 and the interest back. So they're always secured.
They're always secure and they're not relying on a third party person, company, government to insure it and back it.
Most of them that I use and that people are out there using, 100% of the interest that the person pays that's borrowing money goes to the person that's saving their money. So the interest with a bank, right, you might pay 5% interest on your loan and the bank might be paying 3% to the guy here with the savings.
Right.
And they're taking 2%. With this system, it's all of the interest money is going straight to the people that have put their money in the system.
Because it's being run by software.
It's run by code. There's no human costs, really.
Yep.
There are developers that slowly upgrade it. But yeah, there's really no cost of having a big bank on the corner, having staff, having all these compliance people. Yeah.
Brilliant. It's something that, you've mentioned to me before we were filming and I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah, that's the ultimate beauty of cryptocurrency is that this technology can replace systems that we currently have that require huge amounts of money, resources, and people, and it can do it without all of that and still be secure.
And I really like the fact that because maybe in the future we can rely solely on crypto or Bitcoin, but obviously at the moment it's very heavily reliant on fiat currency. And so I love that, you can integrate fiat with crypto and Bitcoin in such a seamless way and benefit from the upside of both systems, I suppose.
Yeah, it's integrating the old system with the new system.
Yeah.
And it still gives you better benefits than a bank, really.
Yeah.
Because even if I borrowed $2,000, like I said, in the system, so I put my Bitcoin in and take out my loan, there's no repayment terms. I don't have to pay $10 every week. I can just pay the full amount with the interest at any given date. So it's very freedom. There's no questions asked.
That's another big upside, isn't it?
It's 10 grand in Bitcoin, so they're not worried if I'm not going to pay back the loan. They've already got, my Bitcoin. They don't care who I am. They don't care how much money I make. As long as I've got the Bitcoin to cover it, it's ready to go. So literally, if I whipped out my laptop now, within a minute, I could have a loan, money in my hands, ready to go. Whereas at the bank, we all know it's a very big process now. Yeah.
Wow. And so before we wrap up and we can tell people how to perhaps start getting into this way of operating, I just wanted to touch on perhaps another important upside to crypto, which is the decentralization of crypto and of Bitcoin. We mentioned a little bit earlier with Bitcoin, but in regards to how, firstly, maybe you can tell us, what does decentralized mean?
Yeah, good question. Decentralized means that there's no central authority. So like I said, Bitcoin is a digital currency, right? With currencies, you always need a government or someone in the middle that keeps everything running. Make sure that there's no one being fraudulent, no one's making fake money, fake copies. With Bitcoin, instead of having one company or computer do everything because it becomes a risk, we're trusting one place. Bitcoin is software that anyone in the world can operate on a computer. So Bitcoin today is a network of tens of thousands of computers all around the world. Anyone can run one, and they all talk to each other, and they all store all the information and run the entire network. So even if China banned Bitcoin tomorrow, you would see a portion of all the computers go offline, but the network would stay up.
Right.
For Bitcoin to completely die right now and stop working, you would need the entire world's electricity to stop at the same time. And if that happens, Bitcoin will be the last of my concerns.
Yeah, exactly. You've got bigger problems to worry about.
Yeah.
And I think the other aspect is then because there's nobody who's in control of it. There's no one person.
Sounds scary, right?
Sounds scary. But at the same time, we've seen some very scary examples of what happens when somebody is in control of the money supply. Well, we already spoke about what the problem is with the government being in charge of the money supply and just print. But as we saw with the Canadian truckers, for those who don't know, in Canada, when they had the truckers protest around COVID, the government simply said, if you're involved, we're just going to switch your bank accounts off. And they just froze, I don't know how many accounts it was, hundreds, maybe thousands of
froze people's money because they knew that if they couldn't buy food, they'll have to go home. Yeah. They can't keep protesting. So let's just block all of their access to money.
Yeah. So people who, and the thing is that, and it's so important to mention because not enough people know about this, but there were people who were peacefully protesting.
Yeah.
And the government essentially stole their money. They took away access so that people could not survive. They could not buy food and groceries. And they did it like that. And so clearly the benefit of crypto and Bitcoin is that government can't do that.
No one can. With Bitcoin specifically, with all of crypto, anyone can set up a cryptocurrency. That's right. What makes Bitcoin kind of different and special to the rest of the market is that it is kind of this pure thing that nobody can do that. And trusting humans over human history has been the problem with money complete. Over all of history, even if you look into the different empires that have risen and fallen, like the Roman Empire, part of the Roman Empire falling was that the government and the people in charge, they wanted more things, but they didn't have enough in tax payments or revenue from their people. So they just made new coins.
Yeah.
And they started making new coins out of cheaper metal so that they could to trick people into thinking it was actually real money. And what that did was create inflation and poverty in the Roman Empire, and that was part of what made it fall. So even today, we think we're so smart with everything. We're literally doing the same thing that's been done hundreds and hundreds of years with money, and it's just human greed. Anyone that's in charge of money that can create it for themselves and make themselves rich, eventually that opportunity or that desire will become so strong that they'll just do it. Every single time over history, every currency that has the ability to be created by someone that's in charge of it, they always abuse it. Always.
Well, as the saying goes, ultimate power corrupts ultimately.
Yeah. Like
It's inevitable.
We're just broken as a species. Like it'll always happen. So Bitcoin is in a situation where there's no one that has control of it. Even the guy that created it, he's disappeared. But even if he came out tomorrow, he has no more control over Bitcoin than my dog does.
All right.
So, I mean, everyone will look up to him and think he's a cool guy, but he can't really do much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest value points of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
We don't have to trust human nature.
seriously worthwhile considering what the long-term ramifications of that are, and the long-term ramifications of the trajectory that we're on currently with the way that monetary policy is being handled. I mean, if you just look at what's happening in the US with the Doge Department of Government Efficiency looking into the wasteful spending. They're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of just wasteful, fraudulent spending. It's just,
And a lot of that is money that they haven't actually got from taxes. They've printed.
They've created it.
Yeah, because they don't have enough money to spend, and so they've created new money and then just started spending it like crazy.
just
If I gave you a credit card and said there's no limit and you never have to pay it back, you would just stop buying. It's pretty much like that. That's what our money system is. So the more you realize, it can be very depressing, but the good thing is there is ways to work your way out of it, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's worthwhile like considering just how bad it can be and kind of is, because it wakes you up to what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And then once you understand what's going on, you realize that, at least in my case, I've realized that it can't continue in that way. And
Not
that's
forever.
No, not forever. You can kick the can down the road for a while, and that's what we've been doing. But it's really nice now to be able to see this is not going to end well. What's the solution? Well, Bitcoin is a possible solution, and to start thinking about how we can all get involved in the solution rather than still taking part in the problem.
Or you'd be forced to be stuck in the problem.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, like our parents and rich people, they can buy houses, they can buy gold. A lot of young people and people that are just starting out their life as adults, they don't have $500,000 to buy a house, and they're kind of stuck, So your way to get ahead is very limited, but Bitcoin is one that is helping young people.
So if you were going to give somebody who's interested, they've thought about it now, they know what the pros and cons are, if you were going to give them one piece of advice, what would that be? What's something that they can take from this episode that is ideally practical or tangible, and run with it and start making some changes in their lives?
Yeah, I think like we've explained, your energy is worth everything. You work to have money. And is that money going to be worth anything to you in 10 or 20 years' time? Are you actually using it or putting it in the right places? So yeah, if I was to say anything to people, is just look at where you're putting your money. If you're keeping it in dollars in a savings account, is that actually helping you in the long term or not? So one last thing I'll say is that quote, rich people own assets, poor people don't. That is the defining factor of finance in every single situation.
So just start to think about that and move in the direction of owning
Would
assets.
you like to own assets or
do you want to be a rich person, or do you want to be a person?
You might not want to be a rich person, but you definitely want to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Sarn. I really appreciate it. I hope that the listeners and viewers have taken a lot of value from the episode. If people want to reach out to you, either get some more advice from you or find out how they can work with you, where can they find you? Where can they learn more?
I'll just give my website. So my name is Sarn, so Sarn, So just www.sarn.co.nz. That'll take you straight to my consulting page where you can just reach out. We've got a form. And if I can help you, I'll let you know. And then we can look at having a sit down either remotely or in person, depending where you are. One thing I will say, there's lots of free information out there. So don't be scared to do a bit of your own research, of course. But if you are just wanting that direct help from myself, that's where my value comes in.
Brilliant. I'll put a link to the website in the description below for anybody who's interested. They can click on that and reach out to you. Yeah, thanks once again, Sarn. Really appreciate it. And yeah,
thanks for having me.
Hopefully you guys have taken something from it. It's certainly worthwhile giving some consideration into what you're doing with your money and what your long-term financial plan is, although plan can start to seem a bit overwhelming. So perhaps what your financial goals are.
Are you progressing, I guess?
Yeah.
Against the system that's not...
Yeah, are your actions in line with what you ultimately want to have?
Yeah. Great way to wrap it up.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Thanks.
Appreciate it.